Yo guys, those of you who watch these regularly may be a little bit sick of seeing these, but I want to let everyone know there's yet another new preset pack for Ableton racks on my Bandcamp. The link is here. It's also in the description, so it's not a big deal if you miss it. And yeah, it's 20 new Ableton racks, similar to my old one. If you cop that, it's just $5, so if you didn't, now's a good time to check it out, I guess. And yeah, I also want to let everyone know that I am actually doing, production lessons now, over Skype. I've taken them up again. If anybody's interested, just contact me via my email, Facebook, Instagram DMs, literally anything. Comment on this video and I'll probably hit you up. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody. Check those things out, and here's the video. Hey guys, new day, new tutorial, I guess. Today, I'm gonna be showing you how to sample and sort of how to, well, basically how to turn something like this into something like this. Which, this technique can be used across genres, as you see by the clickbait title. These sort of techniques are used a lot by Kaytranada, Knowledge, Flying Lotus, those kind of guys who use a lot of samples, but always take them in a new direction and make them sound interesting in a way that you would never expect. And so I just want to say also, some of this may be kind of retreading if you're not a beginner and you're more experienced with producing, but just stick along. Hopefully I can give you some interesting tips. Okay, so to start off with, I want to say, to the people who are asking where to find samples and stuff, that's kind of there's really no way to do that other than to just do the legwork and sort of figure it out on your own. Find samples on YouTube, go to record stores if you want to, find samples, all that kind of stuff. I'm gonna link a pretty good playlist for samples in the description so you can go and check that out. But other than that, yeah, you really just gotta start digging. Now once you have your sample, there's a few things I always like to do to get started. So the first thing that I like to do is make sure that the beats line up, meaning the first one of the first bar of the song is lined up with the first one in Ableton. And by one, I literally mean this marker 1, the first beat. These bars are separated into beats. Here's quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the first beat. And there's a very simple way to do that. Obviously, with a song like this where you have a nice kick, you can just take the warp marker and unwarp it as well. I always like to get my samples unwarped and just playing through very cleanly. I should move this down a semitone probably. I moved it up to avoid copyright infringement issues, but with this video, I may just be going head first into that, so who cares? But yeah, so I've got that kick transient lined up, and now it starts on the right beat. Another thing I like to know when I'm working with samples, for the sake of making stuff around it, is the key. And well, not that, the BPM as well. There's this website. There's a few websites like this, but I like this one, Song Key BPM. You can also usually just get it by Googling, if you're working with a somewhat well-known song, if you just Google, for example, this one, Slatin or Slayton, I don't know how you say that, but if you Google, Slatin, I don't know, Paranoid Remix, yeah, Meditation Paranoid Remix BPM or something like that, you'd probably get this coming up. But this website's pretty good. You can find the key and BPM of your track, so you can figure out what key this is in, and that's helpful. And you can also find the BPM, which I'm going to show you why you need that as well. So we're going to look this song up. It is called When the Party's Over by Alexander O'Neal. So I already looked it up. So I'm just going to look that up. And you see there's a lot of When the Party's Over. But if we click on this right here, okay, so we know it's an F minor and it's 81 BPM. So right off the bat, what we want to do, they also got a lot of information here. Wow, the loudness, that's pretty cool. But what we're gonna do is, since the original is 81 BPM and we have it unwarped and set so that the first warp marker is at the first like beat. We're gonna go ahead and set our BPM to 81 in the project file. Now, with some of these older songs, it's not always accurate. But I'm looking at the waveform and it looks like it lines up. So now, if we play it with the metronome on, okay, so it's pretty much on. And you see, yeah, it's like about a perfect loop there. So that's good. So once I've got that down, I usually just warp it. And then now, whatever BPM I set this to, like if I go to 120, it'll still be synced up. So we know the key, we know the BPM. Now we got to start doing some things to sort of obscure it and make it a little bit more interesting and cool sounding. Cause you couldn't really just put this straight into a track. This doesn't really sound like anything. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and just click here and hit Control or Command E if you're on a Mac. Control E if you're on Windows, and just click that. Get rid of that. I really just want to take this little 2-bar pattern. I'm gonna go ahead and set the loop here, and now we can go in and kind of like clean up this warping. So like if you see this transient of this next kick is starting a little tiny bit before beat bar 3, so we're just gonna drag that back. And now it should be perfectly warped. And we didn't have to do any like warp markers in between or any kind of weird stuff. It just fits. Now, like I said, if you're working with stuff from like the 70s or like stuff that's kind of like more live instruments, it's not always going to line up like this. This sounds like it's a drum machine on this track, so I think that's why it works so well, and it's a very steady beat, but you just have to play around with it. So I'm going to move this up to like, let's say like 112 BPM, I think, is what I was messing around with earlier, and I'm going to pitch this up, and we're going to keep it on complex mode. That's kind of like the best one for messing with samples. I'm going to go +5. I believe that's what this is. But people will tell you a few different things, but in my experience, complex mode is the best, at least for stuff like this. So now that's going to be sounding like this. Yeah, so we have like, you can kind of hear that now. If I play this, you hear the pitch is right, and it's all, the speed is right as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a low-pass filter on this, and this is a good technique to use because it obviously makes your sounds a lot more, like, warm. And it's just kind of a good way to sort of breathe a little bit of new life into some samples sometimes, like, because you're cutting out those highs, and it just gives it kind of like a vaporwavy feel, especially when you're working with something like this track, which is very, like, sort of old-school, smooth jazz type vibe. I'm also gonna cut maybe a little bit around here. I don't know. It's just sort of sticking out to me. So we've done a little bit of filtering. Now I'm gonna put on some saturation. I'm gonna use 2 a bit warmers. And that's gonna make it nice and fat, and you're gonna hear a little bit of distortion in there too, which is good. I like that. And we can turn the low pass down a little too. So you see, that's kind of what gives it that like warm vibe. When you're working with like a sampler, like an MPC or like older gear, a lot of times maybe this isn't so necessary to like use a lot of saturation on it and stuff. But if I play this sample on its own, you can hear it's just very like dry and clean and digital sounding, and that's not really the best for this style. So I put these 2 a bit warmer on. And that's got like some grit to it, and it makes it more girthy as well. So the last thing I'm really gonna do here is I'm going to put on a phaser. I'm gonna use this acoustic cascade preset, and what that's gonna do is you can hear I'm putting it before the saturators as well, because what happens is you get this nice resonance from this thing. A phaser is just a filter. You can look into it. I'm not going to explain it in this video. Phaser is just a filter, and it causes some it like has some resonant frequencies because of how this is set. And so what happens is these 2 a bit warmers saturate those sort of resonant frequencies in a very like nice and pleasing and warm way, at least to my ears. So that's pretty much how I got that sample loop. And like I said, these are a lot of techniques that people use. You can do a few extra things, you know, You can throw on like maybe an erosion to get like a little bit of bit crushing. That's a good way to get that kind of like Daft Punky old sampler, like SP1200 type of sound. But that's pretty much really the meat and bones of these techniques. It's like, yeah, you gotta get a sample, get it all, like figure out the key, figure out the BPM, get it nicely warped in your project file so it's not gonna be all weird and out of time. And then you just start doing things to it to get it to what you want. It's really not that crazy if you just break it down. And like I said, this one's more for like aimed at like beginners and people that are just trying to figure out like how to work with samples in Ableton and stuff. Hopefully you learned something. Let me know in the comments. If you like this video, like it. If you really like this video, subscribe. And if you really, really like this video, please share it with your friends. You can cop my new Ableton racks down in the description. It's on my Bandcamp. It's only $5, so not too bad, as well as my other sample packs. And yeah, peace out, guys.